In this video, I will show you the main pros and cons of the Fujifilm X-T200, a camera that was released in 2020 but is still a good option today. Stick around until the end because I'll cover everything you guys might be curious about regarding this camera. Let's start with the pros. First one, the good screen and electronic viewfinder. The fully articulating LCD screen of the X-T200 is huge. For reference, most cameras usually have 3-inch screens, but the Fujifilm camera has a 3.5-inch screen, which is roughly 36% bigger than what we typically see. The viewing experience is great. This screen is very bright, reaching 1000 nits, and the rich resolution of 2.76 million pixels provides clear images. The fully articulating flip screen is definitely one of the most delightful features of this camera. The electronic viewfinder is not as spectacular, but it offers what the competition also offers on most of their mid-range cameras, a 2.36 million dot image that is crisp and easy to read. Second pro, good photo-video image quality. When compared to its predecessor, the X-T100, our camera is a big step up. It has a new and improved sensor, the stills look great, and the dynamic range is fantastic. Each time I look at the photos that I took with the X-T200, I enjoy the quality that is coming out of its 24.2 megapixel sensor. Full HD videos are nice and sharp, and they offer a lot of frame rates to choose from, 24, 25, 30, up to 60 frames per second, and there is also a slow motion feature at 120 frames per second. But as you will see later, this feature has some limitations. 4K videos are impressive on this camera because it uses a 6K image and downsamples it to 4K. Here, we can choose from 24, 25, and 30 frames per second. And the cherry on top, there is no crop. While filming in 4K, the camera uses the full width of the sensor. Good job, Fuji. The third pro is about Fuji's brilliant feature that many people enjoy, their film simulations. On the X-T200, we have quick access to them. We just have to turn this dedicated dial and choose the film simulation we like. It's interesting to see how the screen splits into two so that you can compare two film simulations, clearly see the differences, and choose what works best for you. Unfortunately, we don't get all the film simulations on the X-T200. Eterna, Acros, and ProNeg are missing, but at least we get most of them, and we have this very interesting dial that helps us to choose the look that we want. The fourth pro has to be about the USB ports. Even though we see only 2 ports, they have a lot of functionalities. First, there's the HDMI output that you can use if you need an external monitor. Then there's the USB-C port that allows you to transfer files, use the X-T200 as a webcam, connect the headset via an adapter, and charge the battery. So many things. On the left side of the camera, there's a microphone port, very useful for video shooters, and you can also use that port for a remote. I haven't seen a camera with so few ports that do so many things. The fifth pro is about the lenses. As we all know, the glass we put in front of the camera is as important as the camera itself. The X-T200 is compatible with Fuji's X-mount lenses, which means that for this camera you have more than 100 options to choose from, which is great. These were the main pros. Now let's also see the main cons. First one, 4K video recording for only 15 minutes. Yes, the X-T200 records in 4K and the footage looks great, but it's limited to only 15 minutes. It doesn't matter if you choose 4K in 24, 25, or 30p, the recording will stop after 15 minutes. In most cases, if you're doing B-roll for example, this limit is fine, but some people might not like it. In Full HD, we have the classic limitation, 2x more than what we see in 4K. The camera stops recording after 30 minutes. The second con, and a big pain point for me, the average build quality of this camera. It is very hard to turn the aperture and shutter speed dials. Very hard. I admit, this is not a brand new camera, but here's how stiff these dials are. They don't stand the test of time. Quite often, you have to use 2 fingers, which is irritating. It simply makes you leave your camera at home or grab another camera with friendlier dials. If you also buy an used X-T200, maybe you won't be having this issue, but if it's a heavily used X-T200, these dials might get stuck. The mode dial and the film simulation dials are fine though. Another bad thing is the plasticky feeling. I do appreciate the front and back grips, but they give a cheap sensation. Lastly, the power and record buttons are not friendly at all. They are small and poorly designed. You can't clearly tell if you press them or not, and oftentimes you turn the camera off after you just turned it on or stop recording because you don't know if the camera started recording. Yep, the X-T200. Great image quality, but poor build quality. The third con is about that small buffer. This camera can do 8 frames per second with continuous autofocus, which is not bad. But in just 3 seconds of pressing that shutter button, it is done. I don't usually use continuous shooting, but I was surprised to see how fast the camera stops taking photos because of that limited buffer. Fourth con, the menu of this camera is quite limited. Here, I'm mainly talking about how it overall feels compared to a camera I previously owned, the Fujifilm X-H1. On the X-H1, everything was more intuitive. The X-T200 definitely feels like a lower-end model. The main thing that bugged me was the limited button and dial customization options. It doesn't let me switch the function of the two small dials. You can set the front one for changing the shutter speed and the back one for the aperture, like I prefer. The only really helpful customizations are linked to the two physical buttons. Another YouTuber was mentioning that you can't set quick access to ISO, but you actually can. I set it on the first button, but other than this, nothing helpful, at least for me. The last section of this video is about aspects of this camera that are neither pros nor cons. They're right there in the middle. I call them pro-cons. I will quickly go through them. The first pro-con is about focusing. On the X-T200 it is not great, but not bad either. While recording videos in Full HD and 4K, the camera's focusing capabilities are surprisingly good. It features eye tracking and does a nice job of keeping you in focus while talking in front of the camera. I would give it an 8 out of 10 in this department. This camera also has 425 on-sensor face detection AF points that do a decent job. They are not at Canon's or Sony's level, but they are satisfactory. The second pro-con is about this camera's battery life, which is quite good for a mirrorless camera. It supports the classic NP-W126S battery, and if that battery is brand new, you can take up to 270 shots. And in economy mode, it can even go up to 450 shots. These are not DSLR battery performances, but they're not bad. The third pro-con is about smartphone connectivity. We do get Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on this camera, so we can connect it to the camera. Now that's the good thing. The bad thing is that Fuji's apps are quite hard to use. The Fujifilm Camera Remote app has 1.5 stars rating and the Fujifilm X app has 3 stars on the App Store. The fourth pro-con is about image stabilization. Although we don't get IBIS on this camera, we do get an interesting feature named Digital Gimbal that is quite good. It crops into your image a lot when you activate it, but the results are surprisingly good. As you can see here, while moving and shaking the camera, it keeps my footage rock solid. The last pro-con is about high-speed videos. The camera can do 120 frames per second in Full HD. That's the good thing. The bad thing is that it won't export a video at that frame rate on your card. The slow motion processing is done in camera. You have the option to choose if your footage will move 2 times, 4 times, or 5 times slower, and the camera will export an already processed slow motion video that, by the way, doesn't look as crisp as a regular Full HD video. In conclusion, this is clearly an entry-level camera. The image quality is nice, but the build quality is average. It's a camera for aspiring filmmakers, vloggers, and photography enthusiasts. If you get a good lens for it, you will definitely achieve great results. I hope the 7 things that I've mentioned answered every question you might have had about the X-T200. And if you enjoyed this video, press that like button and see you in the next video, guys. Take care.